we're saying hotel to this big family out there. I know we were not able to come live yesterday because of technical issues, whatever reason it is. We do apologize for that. But today we are live direct with Reverend Mathews, whom you all are aware, and so I just want to invite everyone that is watching to share the stream and connect. And I'm also waiting for the correspondent out there to give us the go-ahead to start the conversation. But in the meantime, let me start by welcoming you, finding out how you're doing. How was your week? How was your weekend? And I bring you warm greetings from Professor PLO Lumumba and the PLO Foundation out there. I bring you warm greetings from ADDI, yes, from the African Development Institute. And I bring you warm greetings from Joshua Maponga, King Marara the Third, right? Yes, I mean, as you know, we all combine in one. But of course, you're going to see directly Reverend Shock is here, so I'm not going to be saying I bring you warm greetings from his platform. He's here just to talk about a very important topic. And like we already announced before, most often, it's like an African child is never been taught, about money, about wealth creation, about building wealth. I mean, we all grew up differently, particularly on the continent. If you were a girl child, so your mother will educate you about you need to watch out, who you hang out with, you need to be careful not to get pregnant, right? And it was really not a topic of discussion, building wealth, I mean, to give us this mindset. So we want to look into all those issues, like, though the topic is teaching the African youths the billionaire mindset, actually, it was like, just like, if we look at the continent and even ancient Africans, like all the Mansa Munsas, yeah, and all the very, very wealthy kingdoms that we all had, they were all billionaires, isn't it? Now we're getting into a system where, our brains have been distorted, have been miseducated, and so we feel kind of like inferior. So when it gets to talk about Africa, so we start talking about charity, donation, we start talking about, always those things that would depress and not give that kind of empowerment that the youth need to know. Today, we want to talk about this remapping the African mind. Yeah, that would be actually the content where we want to present to you today. Want to remap and go back to this historical fact. And we have our expert here with us who is actually, the epitome to say an African child should dream of wealth. We should start by knowing that it is possible. And we have a lot out there. So what is it that we want to learn about? Why should we be afraid when it comes to money? We don't talk about money. When it comes to charity or comes to donation or comes to, such minimal things that the real world economy doesn't talk about it, they don't address it, then it becomes about Africa. No, the future is changing. The young people have to dream, like their ancestors, like the Mansa Musas, like the rich kingdoms and queens. Yeah, I can imagine that Asantewa was a billionaire. Of course she was. Look at the wars that she fought. If we look at the Celine and even the wife, these were all very rich Africans. So why does the African mind has to think poor? Like we say, the poverty mind. So I want to welcome with me here today Reverend Mathews, who is actually saying, no, the African child or the African, no matter where you are, we have to start rethinking and reshaping our minds. That is his topic. That is his focus. And we can repeat and repeat and repeat, but until it sinks. It's like when you Reverend, I mean, what you mean is like we are starting to learn like the ABCs. We don't just learn it once and it just sticks. So until we have to repeat and repeat and repeat and it sticks, isn't it? Good evening.
Absolutely. Good evening and good morning here to me.
Yes.
So everybody needs to know Reverend Shock was running late, and then he ran too early, and then he was running late. And Rev Shock's hair, thank God Rev Shock don't have any hair to fall out. That's all I'm saying. But it was really good. It's great to be back with you, Dr. Tata. I just love you, and you love your platform. Today, what I want to really talk about, I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation. It's pretty intense. I really want to get into the mapping of the mind, the mapping of the brain, how the African mind works, how it has been hijacked, compromised, and to be able to see again and explain nothing's wrong with us, something happened to us. As a result, I think what I'm going to be presenting today will hopefully answer some deep-seated questions that you've been asking, that we all have been asking, and then give some solutions as to what to do to move forward as a people.
Mhm. If you look at the situation particularly, could you just update us, because we have our viewers on the continent, particularly this is just another subplot just to divert and get more of our platform viewers connect. Then we start the proper conversation. What is breaking out there in the United States? I mean, we know about the and other things, and we also heard about some other riots. Could you just update us?
Yeah. So, matter of fact, my presentation today is dedicated to Dante Wright. Dante Wright was killed by a white female police officer in Minnesota. She mistaken her taser for a gun. She was supposed to tase the young man, and she ended up shooting him. So that's created a riot. Someone who's been on the force for 26 years. Not knowing the difference between their taser and their gun doesn't really sit well with us, obviously. We're in the middle of the George Floyd trial, so it's exceptionally tense here in the States. And it always has been, but it's just more exacerbated because of what is happening. There was a sergeant who was pulled over and pepper sprayed by the police, man who was a veteran working in the Army. And so the police violence, the systemic racism, and the blatant disregard of Black human life here is sometimes overwhelming. Again, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this PowerPoint presentation today, because I really want us to understand what is happening to us, but more so what we can do about it, because it's not going away until they die off as a species. So we're going to have to learn how to develop some skills, some techniques and tools, but we have to understand how our mind is working, how it has been hijacked, and how to get back into our rightful mind.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that brief, update. Could you just a little bit just talk about you, what you do, and what your specialty? You have a massive platform with more than 1 million followers, and you've been on this journey for so long. Now, yes, we're combining and connecting the continent. For those that maybe missed you, never had heard about you, you say you want to give back to the Africans. You want to empower the African youths, particularly, to start thinking and to not believe that anything happened to them, or that is a curse on Africa, or that Africans never understand themselves. Everything, we are confused, we're at war, we're at hunger, we're at diseases or whatever, we're corrupt. But you just want to empower the African to understand nothing happened to you, but something was done to you.
Absolutely, 100%. So as I have, I've been in metaphysics since I was 10 years old. I'll be 56 this year, so that kind of gives you a perspective. And I've traveled the world speaking, and of course, prior to COVID, I've mastered what's known as creating digital income or digital wealth, so I don't have to leave the home to earn money. And so that's one of the things that I want to teach globally, particularly in Africa, to teach my community how to be economically sufficient and separate from what we call the Amu, the European or whiteness. Because as long as we have a codependency with this group, we are in danger. And so I decided to end up, I got my master's degree in metaphysical science and philosophy. I decided a year ago that I wanted to get my doctorate in the same category. So now I'm working on my dissertation for the next 2 years. So I'm doing all the research and everything to prove unequivocally that the African mind is superior to systemic racism. And again, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt, nothing is wrong with African people or African American people or Caribbean people. Something happened to us. And the issue, I was just having a conversation the other day with a good friend of mine, Dr. Elaine Ferguson, who's going to be coming on the platform. She's a medical doctor. She's amazing. And we were talking about when we use this term, nothing is wrong with us, something happened to us. We're talking about so many different ologies that we have to understand and use to know the depth and the layer of what has happened to us. So part of what I'm going to be presenting today is going to go into that deep layer, one of the, several different ologies, if you will, and sciences, to be able to explain exactly why the African are gods and goddesses, why we are the most durable, most venerable, most undefeatable species in human history, is because the Creator created us first. And when the Creator creates something, it is going to be the best of the best. And the African is the best of the best. It is the archetype of all humanity. What happened to us is that a group of us went into the Caucasus Mountains, and over 100,000 years trapped into the Ice Age, came out and devolved into what we now call and refer to as the Amu, or what we refer to in my ministry as second frequency. But we are first frequency people, and that is why we are able to sustain and have resilience. Although, albeit beat up and wounded and scarred, we're still here. We don't die, we multiply. We are the best of the best of all humanity. And as a result of the Ice Age and the Amu coming out of the Caucasus region, the African taught them how to be civilized, taught them how to bathe, taught them how to eat, taught them how to, they were illiterate, taught them how to build civilization. And so then they turned. So here we are. Again, nothing's wrong with us. Something happened to us. So I want to be able to present that to you today.
All right. Thank you for that brief. I know it is a hype topic, and I'm very happy to see that you come out straight to just say we are the best of the best. I mean,
absolutely, 100%.
Yes, it gives some kind of like, some kind of like, I don't know how I want to say it. It's a kind of a romance in our heart. It's so warming to know that nothing actually happened, because upon everything that we know, it's always been on the negative. Yeah. You hosted King Bogane the third on your platform.
Yes.
Why?
Oh my gosh.
How was it?
Oh, literally life changing. All right. So most of, I can probably count on one hand the over a 40-year period of time of interviewing people, or 30-year period of time of interviewing people, that I was nervous. I was terrified because I wanted to get it right, because I love him so much and what he has done for the Imbo Kingdom. And when we started developing our rapport and having a conversation, and what was fascinating is that he confirmed yet again that we are the best of the best. He confirmed our African spirituality system. He confirmed that there is nothing wrong with the African. We are the archetype. We are not the prototype. We are the archetype. We are the original, for which all other levels of humanity must copy and appropriate, which they have, because they cannot do what we do, because they are not what we are. And I know that rubs people, certain people, the wrong way, probably the Amu, but even some of us that might be proselytized and successfully assimilated and colonized in our minds, because we want to think that, oh, God loves all of his children and we're all equal. And no, we're not all equal. No, we're not. No, there is a superior race. There is a superior ethnicity, and that superior ethnicity is us. And another reason why that can be proven is there are, particularly here in this country, in the United States of America, there has never been more laws written to contain, control, and corral a group of people than the United States of America. So you have to understand why the situation that we're in order for them to survive, if they do not continue with their reign of trying to control and corral African people, they literally would disappear off the planet. And they know this and they understand this. This is who we are. We are gods and goddesses, as Professor James Small said on the platform, on your platform. He says that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so I say that we are gods and goddesses having a whiteness experience. And we are not Negroes. We are not niggas. We are not thugs. We're not thoughts. We are not bitches. We're not hoes. We're not baby mamas and baby daddies. Those are the experiences that we have as a result of being birthed into this corrupt system. Our job is to go back into our right state of mind, henceforth remapping the African mind.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, Professor James Small was one of the most happiest when he watched that conversation. Like I had always dreamed, to meet King Bongane, and so they really appreciated that you hosted him. And we know all the big voices out there were actually watching him. I mean, who do you intend to host again on your platform? Because the
well, I definitely want him to come back. His Majesty King Bongane to come back. I also want His Highness Mashaleh, the governor. I'd love to have him on the platform. And I believe, keeping the fingers crossed, that we might be getting Queen Mother Diambi of the Congo coming on. And so I'm really excited about that. And just the relationship that you and I have, along with Naasha, Hotep Naasha, I'm just sending love out to you. That my goal is to show the power of African unity, and to be able to have conversations with heads of state, and show that this is and that was the other thing, Dr. Tata, that His Majesty King Bongane taught us, as well as Dr. Baba Buntu, that it's the same conversation. You think that it's different in Africa, different in Germany, different in various different parts of the world where Africans live. We're all dealing with the exact same issue. And once we understand that, as I'm going to be mapping this out today with this PowerPoint, once we understand how our minds are working, but how our minds got hijacked, it's game over. We are already unified because we are first frequency people. So because we have the original signal of the creator in us, saying that you are the best of the best, with all of the evidence and artifacts to show for it. Once we recognize how to retrain our brains, remap our brains and our minds, it's a game over. And I'm just excited to be a part of this history with you and with my brethren on the continent and around the world.
Absolutely. So, I mean, from every indication or something, one might be tempted to say, even all this, as you say, systematic or intentionally act against the African is because they already know that we are the best of best. Why
Absolutely.
must some coincidence happen to us?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So imagine a minority group of people coming out of the caves, and they look and they see nothing but beautiful pigmented people. And they developed a xenophobia. They developed uh, a hate and despise for the other. And but they were going to die off if they did not come in some way and assimilate, and so they had to bow to the feet of the African, because while they were devolving in the ice, we were evolving around the world, literally mapping the entire world, civilizing the entire planet, because we're the original people. And we've mastered all science. We mastered all spirituality. Baba Kaba talks about spirituality before religions, and Shabaka stone, Neferkare Shabaka are one of our greatest per Oz or pharaohs. So here we are in this situation where we are now being exposed to a foreign entity, literally a foreign entity that has devolved, because during the last 5,000 years of the Ice Age, there were some of the most severe temperatures that they were exposed to, from 200 to 400 below zero. When you are in that level of survival, you start to, and also when you're exposed to that level of cold, your brain no longer can access higher frequencies. So it can't access the creator. It can't access the cosmic womb, if you will, the waters of none. So their pineal gland began to shrink. They began to act and become barbaric. And using the model from Dr. Edwin Nichols, Philosophical Aspects of Cultural Differences, when you only have sometimes 3 months or less to grow a crop, you have to, and that fails, then you have to look at either eating your young or eating your elderly in order to survive. And so you become psychopathic, you become sociopathic, because it's all about resources and control. So when this group, when the ice melted and this group finally came out, that was the trauma and the torture that they had went through in the ice, because Africans have not done anything to the European. Nature did this to them. And so their fight is against nature. If you notice, they are the antithesis of nature. They are the anti-African. They are always talking about, we have to fight nature, we have to control nature. Well, you and I know that the Africans are one with nature, which makes us the greatest of the great. So we're looking at a species that actually never should have survived, but they did. And the only way that they know how to survive is through violence and domination. They do not know how to be harmonious and one with nature as we are. So there always has been, and always will be this issue. Now, that being said, Goddess, when the African learns how to move into this first frequency state that I talk about in my ministry, then we will be able to live in this world, but have absolutely no dealings with the Amu at all, or control with the Amu, or where the Amu is controlling us economically and spiritually. And so those are the two things that my ministry is really focused on: is spiritual liberation for the family, and economic liberation for the family, because they're dying off, because they're not a natural occurrence of nature. They're not a natural occurrence. And so there's a birth dearth, the COVID, all of these things have come to diminish their population. They have now moved into a critical situation where they cannot reproduce themselves adequately enough to be here. So in the next 50 years, there's going to be a dramatic reduction of the Amu. And I believe it was Pat Buchanan in his book, The Death of the West, that said, for every one of them that dies, 6 are not born. So if you look at that equation and look at that number, that process, they have literally worked themselves off the planet. Now, this was supposed to happen a long time ago, but they kept replenishing by diminishing, oppressing, suppressing, and depressing the African. But because this is God's fight, because this is the Creator doing this, we just have to, the Africans, we just have to get out of the way and allow spirit to do what it naturally does, allow nature to do what it naturally does. So the reason that you're seeing all of this uprising, particularly here in America, is when white people, quote unquote white people, which was invented, but we did that program a few times ago. But when white people wake up and they think they're seeing all of these black people, they think that they're seeing all of these black people that are encroaching upon their values. That's not the case. What they don't realize is that it's not that they're seeing more black people. They're seeing less of themselves, and they don't know how to calculate that because it's coming from the inside out. And so that's what happens with a birth dearth when a population begins to diminish because it's not reproducing. It becomes, the first thing it becomes is it starts to become irrelevant. And so you see this new terminology in our vernacular called Beckies and Karens. Those are women in their 50s and 60s who are losing their power and their sense of power and their locus of power. The same with white men in their 50s and 60s. There's a term that you can Google that is called the Great Replacement. And the Great Replacement was coined by a sociologist in Chicago by the name of Pape, P-A-P-E, I believe his name is. And he's an expert on terrorism and ideology. And so he did a deep dive into the mindset and the ideology of the white men who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. What he discovered was that it was not about Trump. It was not about Pence and all of that. What it was that what he discovered was that white men in their 50s and 60s and 70s are finding themselves becoming less relevant. And so they're going through a social, environmental identity crisis because they are diminished, and they're diminishing in numbers, and they're losing power. And so whatever, it's kind of like, let's say you've seen like a weed or something grow in the crack of concrete, out of it. It's kind of like that. They're looking at what was already here, and all of a sudden they're confused as to, this is not about Africans versus the Amu. This is God's work. This is nature's work. This is something that is happening where nature is restoring itself and restoring it back to its original archetype. And guess what? What I'm happy about is I'm part of that original archetype, which is the African. So when we understand this great replacement is what they're feeling, what they're sensing. But the problem is that there's nothing they can do. They don't have the ability to replenish. So now the super rich, what they're doing is trying to create a locus of power to keep their power in place, but they're losing that ground as well, because most of the billionaires in the world are in their 60s and 70s or late 70s. And so they're dying off, and they're not able to transfer the same level of ideology that they are trying to hold on to. So they're in a very precarious position. And when a violent group of people begin to be cornered and feel minimized, marginalized, and losing a sense of relevancy, they become violent. And that is what you're seeing in America and perhaps around the globe, but particularly here. That is the undergirth of what is happening. So that being said, I got to get into this PowerPoint presentation. That being said, is that the African has to be able to know who we are and to be able to control our mind, because we are dealing with people who are out of their mind.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And I really, while you're preparing your PowerPoint, I want to thank our guest. Really, a lot of people just joining, and they're giving you a lot of thumb ups to say,
Oh,
hey,
thank you.
you're doing incredibly.
I love
very
you, family. I love my Africa. Mama Africa, I love you.
And they say we miss you a lot. So yes, we want to know about the spiritual liberation and the economic liberation. So over to you, your presentation. We want to know how the African can remap its minds to think great and to do very great things, not to always be on the deficit. So over to you, sir.
Absolutely. So I'm going to expand my screen here. Well, I'm already sharing, so I guess you just have to port it in. I'm going to go full screen. Can you see my screen, Dr. Tata?
I think, can you see his screen? Because I see it like, yes.
Fantastic. Because I can't see you guys anymore because I'm in full mode.
No, I would have to leave. I would leave so that we have the entire screen for you, right?
Okay, fantastic. All right.
I'm in the living room with you. Yes.
Okay, and just let me know if there's any technical issues, because as I'm going through this, it's a lot of stuff I've got to go through. So I always start my presentations, family, as you know, with our affirmation of power, prosperity, and protection. So I will say it, and then you can repeat it as I'm saying it. I am one with first frequency. I am fourth frequency, meaning that there are no Negroes and there are no niggas. We are gods and goddesses having a third and fourth frequency experience. And we help our people overcome the trauma bonding and capture bonding and Stockholm syndrome to whiteness. Additionally, we are a culturally specific teaching ministry. Exclusively for Africans and African Americans, for us, by us. We specialize in healing and removing the ancestral, historical, and incarnate trauma within us. we additionally reveal the natural nature of who we are. You are, and we are, and we all are original first frequency people. We're God's first idea, first gestation, first concept. We are the firstborn. We are the best of the best as a result of the Creator creating perfection. Since the Creator is perfection, then subsequently whatever it creates in organic form, in a multiplied form, would be the same. So we are one and the same as the Creator, as above, so below. We're a teaching ministry, not a preaching ministry. Now, me, yours truly, known as the Metaphysical Morpheus, I have a master's degree in metaphysical science and philosophy. You can go to metaphysicalmorpheus.com and download a three-part chat that I did with brother Billy B-Man Bird, who I absolutely love and adore. I'm sure he's out there watching, Hotep King. I'm the founder of the First Frequency of Oneness, Science, Manifestation, and Prosperity Ministry. SHOCK stands for Seeking Higher Omnipotent Conscious or Cosmic Knowledge. And I'm also the founder of the SHOCK Metaphysics Virtual Comedic Wisdom School, where all of the best minds, from Professor James Smalls to Baba Kaba to Wade Nobles to Dr. Leonard Jeffries, teaches weekly lessons, and we have about 3 years of deep content that people can engage in. I'm more known as the host of the Philippe Mathews Show. I've authored over 19 books. I've lectured. This lecture is based on my master's thesis, Can Using Metaphysical Meditation and Affirmations Daily Heal the Trauma of Generational Poverty in Africans and African Americans. Baba Kaba Hiawatha Kamene calls me the Marcus Garvey of our time, and Mark Victor Hansen refers to me as the Oprah of Internet. And so again, you can go to shockmetaphysics.com. You can enroll for free to our 6-day video e-course that will feature Professor Kaba and Dr. Leonard Jeffries and some of our, I think, Professor James Small, some of our most brilliant minds and scholars that will give you the deep level of African sacred science. So let's get into it, family. Remapping the African mind. What part of the African brain breaks down from the constant stress of racial battle fatigue? That part of our brain is known as the VMPFC. The ventral medial prefrontal cortex controls and helps to reduce the impact of stressful situations. Stressors aren't stressful if you think you can escape or solve them. The VMPFC turns off the stress response and eliminates the effects of stress. Now, if we are not able, if we are under tremendous amounts of stress continuously, and we are never able to feel in control of our lives, then this part of the brain stops working. And then we start to act illogically. We start to act counterproductively to our own good. So how many of you know people who are doing things that are harming the community, harming themselves and the community? It's because this part of the brain is not working because of the impact, the constant bombardment and impact of the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. Now, Dr. Luann Brizendine had this to say on my show some years ago, explaining the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. Let's take a listen. racism, systemic racism, breaks down the African brain. The stress is overwhelming, and so at some point we start to not think logically, and we start to move into a state of confusion. And this is where we are. So part of my mission, my job, is to Sankofa this thing. We got to go back to come forward. We have to go back into our rightful mind and restore our rightful mind. So people with post-traumatic PTSD don't activate this region of their brain. Further explanation is provided. I have a one-on-one exclusive interview I did with Dr. Brian King on my radio show. And for those who are watching, at the end of this, you will be able to get access to this PowerPoint presentation as a PDF. And so you'll be able to click on all of these links and take a deep dive into the original research of how I have come to these scientific conclusions, if you will, by working and interviewing many of these doctors and experts. You can also go to 4frequencies.com, the number 4 and frequencies.com, and you can pick up this research. It's pretty replete and extremely powerful. Now, when we understand how when the VMPFC breaks down this part of our brain, we learn how to be poor. We learn. It's a learned behavior. Poverty is a learned behavior. We think that we're born into it, but we're actually preconditioned into it actually at birth while we're in the womb. So we learn how to be poor. We feel we are in a fog and we can't think straight. We can't get past go, so we procrastinate. We never start or we never finish what we start. We can't think critically when this part of the brain is being hijacked and bombarded by racial battle fatigue. Our emotional quotient, our intelligence, our emotional intelligence lowers. We begin to have multiple levels of confusion. And guess what it looks like when all of these things happen simultaneously? It looks like mental illness. Nothing's wrong with us. Something is happening to us. And our job is to be able to figure that out. So now I'm going to introduce you to the science of the big brain, understanding your neocortex or neopallium, forebrain, cerebral cortex, whatever you want to call it. Modern brains evolved about 1.7 million years ago in Africa. The neocortex or cerebral cortex began molding itself around the first two brains, the lizard brain and the midbrain, which we're going to go deep into so you can understand exactly how, number one, why the creator is the greatest of all time and created the greatest of all time, us, but you'll also be able to see how it was hijacked and compromised. The seat of our conscious awareness, the new brain, houses our free will, our thinking, and our capacity to learn, reason, and rationalize. Neo means new. And so this new part of our brain is what makes us sapient. The neocortex is our thinking, reasoning brain that allows us to learn and remember everything that we experience from our external world, and then modify our actions to do something better or different, or to repeat an action the next time if it had a positive result. Now, when we look at and start to begin to understand the neocortex, it's our memory banks. You know, I talked about this in my thesis, where, you know, some of us have been taught, particularly in metaphysics and African sacred science, to use affirmations over and over again, like to walk around and say, I am rich, I am rich, I am rich. Well, if the neocortex doesn't have a memory that it can associate or connect to of you ever being rich, then it's going to attack that affirmation or the concept of that affirmation and reject it. Just like a foreign body rejects in your body, the cells in your body will fight a foreign object in your body because it's not natural. And this is part of this hijack, because being wealthy is not a natural occurrence in our mind. We don't have a memory of it. The neocortex and the temporal lobes are not going to be able to look and confirm that and say, yes, you are rich. So we're going to go through a process where I teach you how to bypass this neocortex, bypass your big brain and all of the memories of failure and loss and poverty, how to bypass that to manifest over and above what has been done to you. Now, we are producing the same mind on a daily basis because we are firing the same neural networks in the same patterns, combinations, and sequences, meaning we ain't learning nothing new. We're not doing anything new. We have a psychological lexicon that I call a zip code, and it's very difficult for us to break out of our zip code. As we process through in the brain and repeat it over and over by firing repetitive inputs, the nerve tracks that are turned on will, just like muscles, develop and strengthen their connections. Neurons that fire together wire together. So you can't think your way out of a situation using the same brain that created the situation. So as Einstein says, you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created the problem. If you are not learning something new, doing something differently on a daily basis, then you are in a psychological loop. The last time I was here at the end of the conversation, Dr. Tata and I were talking about this concept of a loop, of what happens when you are looping. You're not learning, you're just looping with the same information. We're going to go and take a deep dive into that today. So, thinking outside of the box would mean to fire different sets of synaptic connections in a different combination and order, which are not as hardwired as the ones we most commonly use. So part of this is that we have to, because of this new concept, it's not really new, but it's new to the AMU, called neuroplasticity. It doesn't matter, family, if you are 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. You can create an entirely new brain. You can literally create new neural networks and a new reality and a new life for yourself. So we are not stuck. This is not all there is. We can actually make a change, but sometimes we just need to know we can. Sometimes you just need to hear it. Sometimes you need to hear it and see it. So I'm giving this to you today so you can understand that there is no way in hell you cannot get out of this situation. And we're going to show you how to do that and show you how to harness your brain and remap your brain. So how to think outside of the box. Now, I want to talk about 4 realities that I have delineated of the neocortex. The first reality is what I call snap reality. Snap reality is when your neocortex rejects your desired reality and snaps you back to your original construct, regardless of your efforts to escape or expand. This is also known as the backfire effect bias. And snap reality can trigger an identity crisis. So let me give you an example. And I'll use my own life as an example. I sometimes I had felt like I was running to stand still on a treadmill. No matter what I would do to try to get out of poverty, to get out of trauma, it kept coming. It changed. It morphed. It changed as different people ended up doing this, harming me and betraying me and doing the same thing. And so this reality, I had this goal, this idea of who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, but I kept snapping back into this reality, which was the zip code that I was living in at the time. I didn't know that I had the power to change my mind, literally change my brain chemistry and my actual brain, my neurobiology of my brain. I didn't know I could do that. So I kept snapping back into this reality. So many of you have New Year's resolutions. Many of you have goals. You have dreams. You have ideas, and you share them perhaps with your friends, family, and your environment. And then all of a sudden, you snap back right where you were. And you say, "I thought I was done learning this lesson," and you're right back where you were. And sometimes you're 2 steps further back than you were forward. This is what I refer to as snap reality, and it's a product of our neocortex not having a memory of a properly installed memory and intention of what it is that we want to do. Forced reality is when a life event occurs without your permission or your ability to stop it, but you are forever changed or altered by it, right? So when we look at the deaths of George Floyd, when we look at the death in a family, when we look at police violence, when we look at the assault of whiteness on black bodies around the diaspora, it's a forced reality. And the neocortex looks at that, captures it, and collects it and accepts it. And because that's what that part of the brain is supposed to do. And this is how the African brain or mind is programmed, with a preponderance of overwhelming evidence, whether it's positive or negative. The reality is forced upon you. So we're going to talk about how to bypass the neocortex and move into a state where you can reprogram. Kind of think of it like this, family: how to reformat your hard drive. Like when you get a hard drive and you want to put it somewhere, you want to reformat the hard drive, which is the brain, the storage capacity of your computer. You want to wipe the memory off of that hard drive and install the new memory or the new intentions. We're going to talk about doing that. Static reality is when no matter what you do, nothing works. You are at a standstill and your old methods of manifestation no longer work. So what happens many times in particularly in the metaphysical community is a lot of the ministers and practitioners have been in this for so long, but they don't know how their brain works. And so they end up in a static reality that no matter what we do, the prayers, the marching, the nothing works. And it's like, why are we standing still? Because it seems like we're standing still because we were frozen in time when the Amu came out of the ice, because they were frozen in time. So we're living their reality and not ours. And so our brains have been hijacked. That has created a static reality where we're seemingly feeling like we're frozen in time and we can't get out. I'm going to show you that as an absolute lie. We can get out, and we're going to be able to make sure that we never go this way again and this never happens again. Lastly is crash reality. Crash reality is when other people infect or affect your reality with their reality. So this is extremely powerful. There's a movie years ago called Crash. Matter of fact, I had Sandra Bullock and forgot the guy's name, the brother's name from Empire. So it was Don Cheadle, I think, was in this movie. And it was all of these different people's lives intersecting and crashing into one another. But here is something that is quite fascinating for you to understand about the African mind. When this comes from life-changing explosion of consciousness. When our perception is vulnerable to so-called lower vibrations, we can experience unhappy feelings that have nothing to do with us. The reason we can identify with these feelings is because we have tapped into someone else's problems or miseries. We become innocent bystanders that suddenly participated in a subconscious show. Now, there it is in black and white. There it is in the book. This is also known as quantum entanglement. I talked about that the first time I came on the platform with Dr. Tata. I did an entire sermon on quantum entanglement. We are entangled quantumly with the Amu's memories, with their pain, with their torture. And so sometimes when we wake up and we're feeling depressed, or as the kids say, feeling some kind of way, it ain't us. We're feeling their feelings. We're feeling their subconscious show. And so, and even the people around us, sometimes we are not like globally, we're feeling some kind of way, but it's not our own feelings. So crash reality is when all of everyone else's realities start to crash into yours, and you begin to feel like you are out of your mind or have lost your mind. Now, this is the big one. Let's talk about the science of the little brain, which is known as the lizard brain. Beneath our cortex, toward the back of our skull, is a part of the brain that we human monsters share with Godzilla. This back part of our brain, or our lizard brain, only understands protection, which is fight, flight, or freeze. The lizard brain loves whatever protects you and hates whatever makes you vulnerable. Now, this is a very big part of the presentation, so I really want you to understand this is the part of the brain that has been hijacked. This part of your brain hates your lover because you're vulnerable to them. Think about this in relationship. This part of the brain, that same part of your brain hates your partners, hates your brain, hates you for the same reason. To your lizard brains, your love for each other is an ongoing source of stress. So let me break this down for you in terms of how it works in relationships, but also how it's working in external or existential relationships. The reptilian brain or the lizard brain does not like to feel vulnerable. Well, what happens when you love someone and that person makes you feel vulnerable? Well, vulnerability is the opposite of protection. And so there are moments when you are with your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever that you feel betrayed and you feel vulnerable. And if you are in an immature relationship, or if you are an immature person, then you are going to do something to manipulate that person in order to get them to do what you want them to do so that you won't feel so vulnerable to them. This is part of the function of the brain. In immature relationships, this hatred, and this is the Resma Minicum. I don't know if you're watching, brother. I love you to pieces. One of the greatest minds in the world is Resma Minicum. This was, I think, his second book, Rock the Boat. Many of you know of his big book, My Grandmother's Hands. One of the greatest minds, scientific minds on trauma and how the brain works ever. I've not met anybody or read anybody more profound than this brother. In immature relationships, this hatred usually grows over the years. The closer you and your partner get, the more vulnerable you become to each other, and the more scared your lizard brain gets. And ditto for your partner's logic. It's logic like this: I hate you for loving me and making me feel vulnerable. If you really love me, you wouldn't make me vulnerable by loving me. This is how the lizard brain is calculating the relationship. Now imagine when your brain is hijacked and through systemic racism, why we're not able to have quality relationships with each other, with our kings and queens, gods and goddesses. This is what's happening to us. Nothing's wrong with us, but the brain has been hijacked. So the fact that your partner makes you happy makes your Godzilla brain unhappy. The paradox of intimacy is that the more important someone becomes to you, the less willing you may be to show all of yourself to them, because it terrifies your lizard brain. This is why they use the term love to hate, or we harm the people, we harm the people that we love. This is why people will sometimes tell their deepest secrets to a stranger in an airport or a bar, but will hide them from their beloved partners. So let's take a deep dive into this, family, so we can understand what happens when the reptilian brain becomes hijacked and compromised due to the constant system of racism and racial battle fatigue. The compromised lizard brain causes us to throw the baby out with the bathwater in our relationships with each other. By harming each other, we are harming ourselves, but we don't know how to stop, because the lizard brain is incapable of logic and reason. Remember, it's in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze. It's not the neocortex. It's not a rational thinking brain. It is a reactive brain. The second frequency Amu, European, discovered this aspect of our brain function and uses it against us to this day, keeping us in check and in our place. Our compromised lizard brain won't allow Africans and African Americans to unite because African unity has been met with death and extreme violence, which creates a vulnerability in the lizard brain, which only seeks protection. So doing anything that compromises our income, our lifestyle, or mortality will result in the lizard brain rationalizing our conformity and ultimate betrayal of our own people. This is probably the most profound discovery when we understand this is the seat of what has happened to us. Why can't we all get along? Why can't we all unite? We ask that question on every damn show that we do and watch, right? This is the reason. This is it. Now you have a scientific understanding of what happened to us. Nothing's wrong with us. This is what's happening to us. Our compromised lizard brain causes us not to trust ourselves. Therefore, if we can't trust ourselves, we cannot trust each other. By using our lizard brain against us, we will support churches and ministries that teach us that God is made in the image of this white boy in the sky, and along with his imaginary white son on a stick. This is what happens when we are compromised. When the lizard brain is compromised, it is not logical, and you start to live an illogical existence in life. Your lizard brain is terrified when it hears Jesus, who never walked this earth, being referred to as an imaginary white boy on a stick. When you hear that, your lizard, because of your conditioning, your lizard brain kicks in and says, oh my God, blasphemy, kill this guy. Who is this bald-headed dude with crooked teeth talking about Jesus? I love Jesus. Dude, never happened. It was installed as a means of controlling the population, and it was installed as a means to control you, to take your mind outside of your mind, to take your power, your innate God-given power that is within you, and put it outside of you. So now whoever is outside of you controls you and controls your family in perpetuity. The lizard brain is at the seat of our self-hate. Our compromised lizard brain hates giving compliments to their own people. The intergenerational impact of whiteness has caused Africans and African Americans' lizard brain to be vulnerable and hate each other. Our compromised lizard brain causes Black men to compete and cancel each other out rather than converse and compliment each other. When I meet other African American men whose lizard brain has been compromised, they will try to level me, position me, marginalize me, make me feel dumb or stupid. They will attempt to embarrass me or humiliate me publicly, and sometimes resort to name calling and insinuation. How many of you listening to my voice right now have gone through that? How many brothers have gone through that with other brothers? How many of you have been betrayed by your own? We're talking about the lizard brain that has been compromised. Nothing is wrong with those brothers. Something happened to those brothers. If you are the one who have done this, and we all have played a role in this, nothing's wrong with you. This is what happened to you. This is the part of your brain that was hijacked and compromised. Our compromised lizard brain will make you believe it is right and okay to cheat on your spouse. Watch this. Watch this. Your spouse makes your lizard brain vulnerable. Cheating on him or her makes your lizard brain feel protected and in control. This is at the seat of our discourse in our relationships that they have hijacked. When they took the African king out of the family, when they made him a stud, this is what they did, and this is how the reptilian brain was hijacked to cause vulnerability in the male-female relationship. Our compromised lizard brain holds in place the false racial identity of third and fourth frequency, the Negro and the nigger. The lizard brain will pay, literally our compromised lizard brain will pay a white person or institution, but want their own people to give them the same information for free. So I'm putting all this out here so you can see yourself, see your family, see your community in this data. Our compromised lizard brain is at the seat of our codependency in all relationships. Due to the compromised lizard brain, our goddesses, our women, will publicly and privately degrade, shame, and humiliate their kings verbally, because their compromised lizard brain doesn't want to feel vulnerable. And so when you feel vulnerable, you attack. And if that is your king, you're going to try to keep your king in check. And then his trauma kicks in, his lizard brain kicks in. Next thing you know, he's in somebody else's bed because he wants to feel in control, because you now make him feel vulnerable because he has made you feel vulnerable. And now you're in this reptilian dance of trauma. The compromised lizard brain causes the bitch, the hoe, the thug, or the thought to use her sexuality to get attention and control men, because being poor and being uneducated makes her vulnerable. So she uses sex to control and pay for her life and her lifestyle. Additionally, the compromised lizard brain makes the thug the most vulnerable emotionally. Therefore, Black men must, by any means necessary, show the world and their community they are hard, they are tough, and they are strong. Are you beginning to see what happened to you? Are you beginning to see yourself in the data family? Ain't nothing wrong with you. This is what happened to you. But most of the people don't know this. Even some of our most cherished scholars have not shared this concept with you and this understanding with you from an African sacred science metaphysical perspective. Our compromised lizard brain causes us to make fun of each other, shame each other. It's called playing the dozens, clapping back and roasting, and engaging in our own, what we call trauma porn. Trauma porn is the joy of seeing someone suffer more than you. Now, we're going through that right now, but many of us have grown up wanting, the reason why we watch some of these reality shows, Housewives, and back in my time, the Jerry Springers and all, is because we want to see somebody hurting more than we are, so that we feel good about ourselves. See, the ancient African mind had control of the lizard brain. That is why we evolved. But when your faculties, when your entire brain is hijacked, when your entire person is hijacked and proselytized and conditioned over hundreds of years, this is the end result. We turn on ourselves. We turn it inward. And this lizard brain is what is doing it. Our compromised lizard brain is responsible for Africans and African Americans in particular to keep up with the Joneses. The thought that another third or fourth frequency person is doing better than they are, or have something that they don't have, is identical to the white rage that second frequency feels when they see Black progress. So how many of us have gone beyond envy to the state of hate when we see rich Black people and wealthy Black people, healthy Black people, Black people winning, and you feel hateful toward them, you feel spite toward them? That is your reptilian brain that has been compromised and hijacked. It ain't your fault. Something happened to you. It's not your fault. It's not your natural nature to hate your own people. That's not natural. That happened to you. That happened to us. So let's talk about the science of the midbrain, where the African mind becomes one with the one. The midbrain is where we experience God, where we experience the creator. In the book Shabaka Stone by Dr. Kaba, he talks about the ancient African brain is one, perceive the creator as one spirit, both male and female, united in self-satisfaction called mer or bliss. And two, viewed holistically, conceptual ideas as the fundamental founding principle of the world's organization. So this part of the brain that you see right here on the screen is where we access, if you will, our Christ consciousness, access our God consciousness, access our first frequency, and we have to learn how to use our midbrain to overwrite and shut down, anesthetize, inoculate, and insulate our forebrain or our neocortex, because the neocortex is just operating on the memory of your zip code for however long you've been alive. So if you don't have a memory of wealth, the midbrain has the memory of wealth because it is your wealth. It is your connection and source. And so you have to learn how to overwrite that and use your midbrain to overwrite the memory and install a new memory of who you wish to be and who you wish to become. So when we talk about the midbrain, we're talking about metaphysics. Myth is the form in which the experience of a people becomes conscious. Myth provides the metaphysical unseen, truth about the physical seen reality. The creation story considered the principles of life and the order and arrangement of the cosmic universe. And so metaphysics is the spirit that brings the physics into being. Again, one of the best books ever written on spirituality is Shabaka Stone, An African Theory on the Origin and Continuing Development of the Cosmic Universe by Professor Kabahaya Wafakamene. Matter of fact, later tonight, he's going to be on with Baba Haru to talk about this very same concept. So in the midbrain is where we also develop our epistemology, metaphysics, ontology. The philosophy is the exercise of reason in the fields of thought and action. In the days of Pharaonic Kush Kemet, or what's now known as Egypt, to be a true scribe, the philosopher had to be a scientist, sage, poet, wife, mother, husband, father, citizen, and warrior. African education requires that method, how you teach, be as important as content in what you teach. It is more dangerous to have a lot of information taught with a bad method than to have a little information with the correct method. So one of my reasons for going into metaphysical science and philosophy is because Dr. Edwin Nichols messed me up when he said, well, philosophy is the highest of all sciences. I said, okay, well, I'll go in that, because actually I was going to work on getting a doctorate in psychology, but all other ologies come under philosophy. So when you master philosophy, and you don't have to get a doctorate in it, by the way, but the African brain, the original state of us, is a philosophical brain that is connected to all and all, connected to source 24/7, first frequency. And so when we understand what happened to us and we're able to get our right mind back, this is what begins to happen. We become our own philosophers. A philosopher acts with wisdom, Baba Kaba says. The application is made possible by his or her degree of intellect of the thinker, the philosopher, or the scribe. And there are three types of intellect possessed by the philosopher. One is clear and concise, which is information is easily transmitted. Number two is being ready, access information quickly. And three, large, which is possesses large amounts of information. So when you look at all of our scholars, don't they all have that? The information is easily transmitted. They access information quickly, and they possess large amounts of information. I think some people have said, I'm a philosopher. I don't know yet. I'm working on it. I don't feel I'm an elder yet, but I'm working on it. But if I have the designation, I'll accept. So let's talk about the anatomy of thought. What is a thought? Because now we're getting ready to control your mind and teach you how to train your brain. Our mind produces a thought whenever certain cells in our brain secrete a tiny droplet of neurotransmitter. That's all a thought is a biochemical process. So there is an actual DNA component to a thought. We think that a thought doesn't have, is just something that is just floating around. But no, there's a biochemical component, a neurobiochemical component to our thinking. So let's talk about how our thoughts trigger the gravitational pull of what I refer to in my book that I wrote in 2002, Shock Philosophy, Ants, Worms, and Fears. Let's get in it. What is an ant? An ant is an acronym for automatic negative thoughts. Ants are preconscious thoughts, beliefs, ideas that keep us trapped in our comfort zone or keep us trapped in our zip code. Remember, nothing's wrong with us. Something happened to us. So if we begin to feel like we can't get out, nothing, no matter what we do, is going to work. No matter how many YouTube videos I watch, I'm not going to improve my life. You are going to be consumed and eaten alive by your ants, by your automatic negative thoughts. They exist to stop us from moving too far ahead of our current environment. They cause us to become uncomfortable with our potential and possibilities. So it causes you to shrink your life and make your life fit in this uncomfortable zip code that you call a life, which is a lie that you're living right now. If you're living in impoverished financial insecurity, you're living a lie, and it's because of these ants, because you have been your brain has been hijacked. They exist to keep us in a holding pattern where we don't act or do anything to better ourselves. They keep us stagnated and stifled, and they causes us to sabotage our own good. Again, the book is called Shock Philosophy. Now, a worm is a metaphor that I use called a deep-seated unconscious belief that lie dormant in our conscious, analogous to a computer virus that only activates when a certain button is pushed on our keyboards. Worms are much more stronger than ants and are more insidious and pervasive. If we are focused, we can overcome an ant with sheer willpower. But willpower up against a worm, which is a deep-seated dominant belief, is like one soldier up against an entire army. A worm will destroy willpower, and we will automatically sabotage our life and act in a manner consistent with our dominant beliefs. Now, remember earlier, we talked about how the lizard brain has been hijacked. That's where the worm resides. That's where the virus, the Trojan, resides. That is what is harming us. That is what is compromising us. And so we have to be able to see it. We have to be able to label it. We have to be able to have some framework and context around it so we can, again, confirm nothing is wrong with us. Something happened to us. So give you an example. An ant might tell you, and an ant might tell you, I'm not good enough to be with this person. That's an automatic negative thought. But if we force our way through that automatic negative thought using sheer willpower and continue to stay in the relationship, the ant may be crushed, but then the worm will appear and it might say, you are not good enough to be with that person. So why are you trying, you loser? Right? How many of you have had negative self-talk to the point where you completely believe you are no good? And pardon my French, if I might be able to say this, that you have been told you ain't shit, you'll never be shit, and so why even try? This is what has been done to you. That is a lie. That is your reptilian brain working against you. That is the worm within the Trojan virus that's installed in your reptilian brain that is telling you you are a loser, you are no good, you'll never be anything. That is an absolute lie. So at the moment when the unconscious dominant belief has you in its grips, you will begin to slowly or abruptly, depending on frequency, sabotaging the relationship in some unconscious shape, form, or fashion. So how many of you have killed your own good? How many of you have killed a great relationship? People have been married 20 years and just up and do something stupid. How many of you have looked at situations where somebody invited you to become a part of something great that could create wealth for you, and you don't show up. You don't even call back. You don't do it. You sabotage. Why? That's the lizard brain that has been compromised to keep you looping. And we're going to talk about these loops in a moment. So the other piece of this ants, worms, and fears is the fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Watch this. Fear is a psychological optical illusion that makes you believe it is impossible to move beyond your current environment, which is the axiology. This is what the second frequency Amu has done to us. It has made us feel like we are stuck and trapped, and that is an absolute lie. Why? Because the only two fears that we are born with is the fear of a loud noise and the fear of falling. Family, all other fears are learned or intergenerationally encoded and transferred. Did you hear that? Let me read that again. We only come here with two fears. The fear of a loud noise. So that's how we were able to protect ourselves from lions and tigers as we began to evolve our brains. And the fear of falling. So we wouldn't fall off a cliff. And we know that if we fall to a certain degree, we might break something, harm something, or injure ourselves. So those are the only two fears that are installed in us when we are birthed. All other fears, family, are learned or intergenerationally encoded and transferred. Nothing's wrong with you. Something happened to you. Fear is a lie. So now I'm going to take you deeper into what we know as the ABC cycle. And I just put a lot of content into this. I just really wanted to, I knew, Dr. Tata doesn't know how much influence she has on me. When she says, can you come to Africa and speak? I spend hours and hours and hours of time doing research to bring you the best of the best, because we are the best of the best and I owe you nothing less. And so I will literally cancel an event if I cannot come with that shock heat, if you will. So let's go into it. We're almost done, but I just want to give you this so you can understand what happened to us. The ABC cycle, ants, worms, and fears are the holographic image of our ego and are housed in our memory and are reinforced through a process known as the ABC cycle. Now, I got this from a guy I met years ago, as a matter of fact, Dr. Stephen J. Krauss, author of The Psychological Foundations of Success. And so there are three distinct processes in the ABC cycle. Let's get at it. Number one is the affect. Affect basically means emotion and refers to feelings, the experience of pleasure and pain. So our emotions shape our cognition and a phenomenon called state-dependent memory. So good moods bring good memories, and bad moods bring to mind unpleasant memories. Again, when your brain has been hijacked, what do you think is the affect that you are most likely to have? Good memories are in turn enhanced good moods and encourage greater action. Unpleasant memories amplify bad moods, spurring either corrective action or a helpless shutdown. Now, when we look at affect, let's look at affect as the thought. Now, that thought creates an emotion, and that emotion moves into and triggers a behavior, which is the second in the ABC cycle. The behavior includes actions, but also refers to verbal behavior, posture, dress, appearance, movements, and physical sensations in the body. Positive thoughts dominate our mind, but negative thoughts dominate our bodies. Did you get that? Positive thoughts dominate our mind, but negative thoughts dominate our bodies. Trauma is stored in the body, not in the mind. So if we have an affect where we're emotionally feeling some kind of way, where we're feeling vulnerable, we're not feeling good about ourselves, we think we're crap, that triggers the behavior in the body. And then it moves into the third, which is what we call cognition. That cognition is what our long-term memory is, and it becomes reinforced. So this is the three-tier system from an ant to the worms to the fears, creates the affect, the emotion. that we're no good, we'll never get out, we'll never be able to move ourselves forward individually or collectively as a people. It moves into cognition, where we start, moves into behavior, where we begin acting up and acting out. We began to move into our addictions to try to feel better about ourselves. And because we're not able to answer that question and to feel like we're in control, because remember at the beginning of this program, I talked about the VMPFC, the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, cannot handle the level of stress that you have been exposed to. And so it just moves into cognition, it moves into long-term memory. And now it becomes reinforced. Remember when I told you when I was here 2 times ago that trauma hijacks and starts to look like personality. This is the process of how that works. So the affect, behavior, and cognition is how the trauma takes over, and it looks like personality. It looks like that's just who you are, but it's not who you are. So what I'm trying to do is remap your mind, is to get you out of your old mind and reconnect with your original mind. Granted, there's no such thing as a new mind. You already came here with it. You were birthed with the perfect mind. You were birthed with the perfect body. You were birthed perfect, whole, and complete. You have been taught systematically how to hate yourself, how to not be able to think, how to despise yourself and despise anything that looks like you. This is what happened to us. Nothing is wrong with us. And so the ABC cycle will automatically play and connect the dots in our mind and body. Once the ant moves into the ABC cycle, we are in chemical dependency mode. That's how quick it happens, from the affect, the emotion, to the behavior, to the cognition. We are within the addictive behavior, acting out and acting as if. And so take a look at shock philosophy. It will give you a deeper insight on these 3 phases of what we are going and growing through. Now, when I talk about, the last time I was here, I was talking about what happens when we loop. We're not learning anything new, we're looping. Let's talk about reality loops. And thank you, Dr. Tata, for that conversation last time. And Baba James Smalls came on, and we had a beautiful ending to the conversation. So let's talk about loops. Dysfunctional open loop occurs when the action does not close the loop. If the itch is caused by a mosquito bite or allergic dermatitis, you scratch, but the itch returns, which is a sign of dysfunction. So an example of a spiritual open loop is, what's wrong with me? What is wrong with my life? Why can't I manifest wealth and sustain happiness? Those are open loops, dysfunctional loops, because you can't answer the question. You can't find an answer. What's wrong with me? Well, we already know nothing's wrong with you, but some of you still believe something's wrong with you. What's wrong with my life? Why can't I manifest and sustain wealth? So that's creating dysfunction and mental illness in your brain, and it's powered by your reptilian brain that has been compromised by the Amu. If we don't find a satisfactory answer, we create a dysfunctional open loop that ultimately halts our peace of mind and creates a sense of something is missing in my life or something is wrong with me. Now, understanding these reality loops, the mind creates loops which are thoughts that demand attention or require action. Open loops occur in any type of system. When open loops occur in the body's system, a body-mind function is activated to close it. An itch is an open loop. It could also be a question that requires a scratch. Scratching, African American centered answer or solution, alleviates the itch, thereby closing the loop. So when you ask the creator, or ask yourself, which you're really asking the creator of yourself, a question, you got to get an answer. If you don't have an answer because your brain has been hijacked, interrupted by the Amu's second frequency signal, you have dysfunction. It's not a healthy loop. However, our ancient African mind were able to answer all of these questions and create a positive, natural open loop. A natural open loop is one in which the action or answer closes the loop and leaves no trace of concentric sphere shift, which means reality. So when we look at Shabaka Stone, spirituality before religions, we look at our when we were kings and queens, pharaohs, pharaonic. When we look at Imhotep, when we look at the best of our of the question, when we look at the Dogon, looking at the heavens and mapping out the heavens, those were questions that we asked the Creator, and the Creator gave us an answer. And that's how we were able to merge our two brains together, our right and left hemispheres together, to become holistic in our thinking and our ability to create civilization, answer our problems, answer our questions, and solve all of our problems. When we were hijacked by the Amu, it began over time to systematically cut into our reptilian brain that we had already mastered, but now it's create a divide and conquer separation strategy. And here we are now self-hating ourselves and self-hating each other. And this is why we are in this kind of loser loop, if you will. So let's talk about this real quickly. Closing this loser loop, the neurobiology of first frequency executive thinking. So what happened to you that you stopped dreaming and seeing yourself in the future? And you slowly began seeing yourself only in the here and now. You're in survival mode. And I feel right now that I'm speaking to somebody out there right now. I'm in your house. I'm sitting on your desk. I'm sitting in your living room right now. We're having a cup of coffee because I think you're beginning to see yourself in this data. And so I want you to know that you are loved and supported throughout this process. But racial battle fatigue and racial oppression are designed to kill your ability to see yourself in the future, to dream, to imagine acquiring or accomplishing something that can move you up and out of the situation that you're currently in. When the RBF or racial battle fatigue signal is successful, you stop dreaming, you stop planning and preparing for a better future and accept your current fate because you can no longer see yourself getting out. Are you beginning to see yourself in this data? Are you beginning to understand what has happened to you? Are you beginning to understand that you have control over your mind, that you can remap, reprogram your mind? We're going to teach you how to do that just a moment. I know this one is long, family, but I wanted to bring the heat to Africa because I can't come to Africa with no foolishness. I'm the Bernie Mac of metaphysics. I can't stand no foolishness. When you were a little boy or a little girl, did you ever go up to your mother and father and say, when I grow up, I want to be a stripper? I want to be a drug dealer, a drug addict, an alcoholic. I want to be a ratchet thought. Were those goals? Now, we know that there are people in our spaces and places that identify as such. When you were little, did you ever go to your parents and say, I want to live paycheck to paycheck? I want to be broke. I want to be a rapist. I want to be a child molester. I want to be a felon. Were these goals? No, something happened to you. There was an axiology that was put in place, which is an environment that was put in place for you to lose, to create a false racial identity of a Negro or a nigger, and you are supposed to lose. You are not supposed to reach your full potential because the Amu has hijacked this reptilian brain, caused your VMPFC to have so much stress that it no longer thinks logically, and now it refers to the reptilian brain because even your neocortex can't sequence and logically think. And this is why we are in the situation that we're in. Nothing is wrong with you. Something happened to you. So there are systems in place designed to erode your potential, possibility, and future, to keep you in mental slavery. Nana Asa Hilliard says mental bondage is invisible violence. Formal physical slavery has ended in the United States, but mental slavery continues to this present day. This slavery affects the mind of all people, and in one way, it is worse than physical slavery alone. That is, the person who is in mental bondage will be self-contained. Not only will that person fail to challenge beliefs and patterns of thought which control him, he will defend and protect those beliefs and patterns of thought virtually with his last dying efforts. Wow. See, that's Nana Isahilya. That's the dude. That is so powerful. See, you will literally, because you have been hijacked by the Amu, your reptilian brain has been hijacked, has broken down your VMPFC, your ventral medial prefrontal cortex, and you think that this trauma that is inside of you is real. You're enraged, and now it's taken over as your personality. You think this is who you are, and you will harm yourself or someone because you believe that what you are living is true. You believe in this white boy on a stick. You will kill in the name of Jesus. You will kill in the name for Jesus, not knowing that that was part of your hijack, to take your spiritual system, your spiritual mind away from you and put your spirituality outside of you. So now you are codependent. You are mentally enslaved to following that white boy on a stick and that white boy in the sky. It is usually one event that occurs that creates a cascading or domino effect that puts the African and African American further back than they were before the event or beyond the point of no return. By the time you're 25, the hidden signal and frequency of racial battle fatigue has taught your brain how to lose, how not to be able to set goals, how not to finish what you start. Racial battle fatigue is a form of domestic terrorism, which creates an act of moral betrayal, causing you to self-sabotage your own people. And at some point, we begin to believe that we deserve to lose. You see, this is where it gets really scary, fam, because some of our brothers and sisters right now believe they ain't no good and never will be any good and have done so much dirt to others that they feel there's no redemption. And they feel like they deserve to die. They deserve to not live a quality life. They deserve not to reach their highest level of potential. This is what has been done to us. That is a lie. You are the best of the best and deserve the best of the best because the Creator only creates the best of the best. But we don't know that because we're taught how to look for our salvation outside of us, not realizing that we were birthed with it as it all along. There are epigenetic tags of unsuccessful behavior that you are born with. Then you are bombarded with racial battle fatigue signals that are triggered through your environmental repetition, which is known as axiology, that you are nothing and never will be nothing and never have nothing. This is the cycle of how the brain is hijacked, how they use the environment, how they put Africans and African Americans in these bubbles, in these zip codes, and how it causes us to literally be hamsters on a wheel or rats in a maze. This is what has been done to us. As I have mentioned on countless occasions, you can't solve third and fourth frequency problems using third and fourth frequency mindset. That being said, the only way to pure mental freedom is invoking the executive intelligence of first frequency. So let me ask you a couple of questions. What is your excuse or argument for losing? Do you watch endless YouTube videos but don't take action on the information shared? Do you purchase a ton of books but either don't read them, don't finish them, or don't take action on the information in them? Are you beginning to see yourself or some of your loved ones and family members in this data? Brother Wade Noble says we suffer from a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity. This is what he means by that. What I just shared with you in terms of how the brain has been hijacked, this is the outcome. It causes our consciousness to be shattered. It causes our identity to be fractured. What does a fracture mean? It means to split. It means to break. It means to break into multiple pieces. When we recognize that when we don't know that we are gods and goddesses, we think that we are Negroes and niggas. And so Negroes and niggas must be who we are. And so how do I act accordingly? How do I be a good Negro? How do I be a good nigga? But you're not. You can't. You can never be. Even Eddie Griffith, the entertainer, comedian, says black people never get out clean, particularly in Hollywood. But I say, because of those false racial constructs, black people never get out clean because you never have been a Negro or nigga. You have been forced to identify as such. And so therefore, your identity has been fractured. So let's remap this. The making of a neural net. From the day you're born, your senses search for patterns that are recognized. Every time something is new to you, your senses have to experience. And may I pause? Can I hold on here? Can I pause for a moment, Goddess? I just want to make sure and get a check-in with the family. Is this good? Because I'm almost done here. But I just want to get a check-in with the community and with you, Dr. Tata. Are you there? I just want to make sure that this is landing correctly. I'm looking at the chat. I can see the chats. If this is making sense to everybody, put a 1 in the chat for me. How you doing, Dr. Tata?
Yes, I am on. I'm on, Reverend, and I'm controlling the chat. I'm taking some questions for you. Everything is perfect. We are following you one-on-one. We are so liberated. I don't want to express it. I know everyone on the chat, even those watching us on the Pan-African Daily TV and Facebook platforms, they are all giving time thumbs up and like, wow, this is a great liberation. We just need our mind.
Then I will continue then, and let me. So I'll put my screen back up, and I'll continue. Thank you, family. I see the ones coming out there. I appreciate you. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right track, and I'm giving the community what they need. All right, let's go back. So we're talking about creating a new neural network. Every time something new is new to you, your senses have to experience the new sensation, and afterward, an emotional response is attached to the event. So new events can be as simple as seeing carpeting for the first time and discovering that it's soft and fuzzy, or experiencing a mean look from somebody and having them hurt you. Once a pattern is created, every time your senses detect a similar pattern, you will immediately feel the originally programmed emotional response. This will steer your movement towards the situation or away from a situation or anywhere in between. So when you start to hear nothing is wrong with you, something happened to you, it starts to break up that old neural network and create a new one. Because now you have a question. You say, wait a minute, Rev, if nothing's wrong with me, then what exactly happened to me? Which of course is what I do, right? I'm giving you the information as to what has happened to you, but I'm creating a new neural network, collapsing your old neural network, and giving you your right mind back to you from its original origin, which is the creator. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, you will have moments in this process where you will feel like you are losing your mind. And in fact, you are. Because you have been compromised. We have been compromised. So we have to lose our minds to create a new mind. So you are breaking old neural connections of the old previous network and wiring a new neural network. The trick is repetition, bombardment, and saturation to reinforce a new neural network. I'm going to pause for a moment and tell you to write this down. The trick to training your brain to remapping the African mind is repetition, bombardment, and saturation. Every day when I repeat, I am one with first frequency, I am one with the first thought idea, I am one with the firstborn people, I am one with the only one, that repetition and bombardment and saturation is breaking up the plaque, the deep-seated plaque of trauma, of racial stress that has been hijacked, that has taken my reptilian brain and caused me to hate myself and hate my people, and it breaks it. It breaks it and stops firing together, and it creates a new neural network of first frequency thought. It connects me with my source immediately. So write it down: repetition, bombardment, and saturation. Depending upon the value system shift of your intention, before the new neural net is locked, you will undergo every emotion and sense of maddening isolation you can imagine. Now, remember, I was here, I don't know, I don't know if I did it here in Africa or if I did it in the United Kingdom with Brother Andrew Muhammad, but I did a piece on the identity crisis and chemicalization. What happens when old thoughts or old neural network is met with a new neural network that you're forcing and moving through using your midbrain, where the creator is, to overwrite your reptilian brain, to restore your reptilian brain, and to overwrite your neocortex, whatever that intention is. What happens is you start to feel like you've lost your damn mind. Like everything starts to go crazy. You're going through an identity crisis because it's an old thought. The old thought is a living, breathing entity, and it doesn't want to die. And so that's why we have our comfort zones. That's why we have the snap reality. Remember, I talked about that, where everything you do, it snaps back. This is why you have to continue to forge your new neural network. The crazier you feel, the more crap that is happening in your life when you begin to engage in first frequency is the very sign that it's working. That's how do you know? When everything goes back, you know what, crazy? That's when you know you are creating a new neural network. You are remapping the African mind and restoring it to its original frequency. So I like to talk about a concept called invoking your RSE, your radical self-evolutionary self. It's a process I call concentric sphere shifting, when you move from one reality to a new reality. It's the process of shifting your value systems and altering the ratio of your traits and characteristics to create and sustain a new level of consciousness, or concentric sphere, or reality. You have expanded your mental zip code or eradicated an old zip code altogether. And that zip code stands for your psychological lexicon, your vocabulary, the part of your neopallium or neocortex that holds all of your memories, that holds your vocabulary, that you are on a loop, that you constantly refer to again and again and again. You're breaking that. You're expanding that. You are moving outside of your neighborhood, if you will. You're moving outside of your zip code. You are expanding your zip code, or you are just abolishing the zip code that you're in because you don't want nothing to do with it, and you're retraining yourself. Another term for this process is called reinventing yourself. How many of you heard the terms of like, I have to reinvent myself? Sometimes we have jobs that we've had for many years and we say, in my past life, this is what I used to do for a living. That is part of the process of reinvention, of radical self-evolution. And so don't believe that you are first frequency. Know that you are first frequency. So you see, beliefs can be changed. Conviction is a state of knowing. You must know that you are God, having a human experience. You are a goddess, having a human experience. Know that you are the creator, having a third and fourth frequency experience created by the rude interruption of second frequency Amun. Knowing that nothing has can and ever will be wrong with first frequency people. Second frequency, Amu, happened to African people, which is the trauma and the Ma'afa. So nothing's wrong with African people. Second frequency happened to African people. So to break your current brain and remap it, do something bold, crazy, and courageous. I found an old interview that I did with Robert Kiyosaki when I was in Chicago. He flew to Chicago to be on my show. Now this is showing you how old Rev Shock is. Rev Shock been out here in the game, family, for a minute. So let's take a look at what Robert has to say, and don't make fun of my thin self and my suit and my shiny bald head. Let's go. Now, do you see what has happened, family? See, they have taken the African mind and they have reversed it to use it for themselves. Boldness is something that we must have in order to move ourselves forward, to evolve as a civilization. But now we have taken a back seat and we're allowing someone else to run us. And again, nothing is wrong with us. Something happened to us. I want you to learn how to become bold in your life and boldly create a new neural network. Now, as we wind down here, I want to give you some opportunities to have access to the PowerPoint of this presentation. If you go and join our Patreon member, if you're already a Patreon member, thank you and eternal thanks. But if not, I encourage you to go and become a Patreon member of First Frequency because we're getting ready to do some great things over there. And I offer a lot of information that I don't share publicly because of all of the stuff that is happening where they're trying to truncate our message. And so it gives me a platform and a place where I can give you some of the latest research on what's going on, how to map your brain, how to move yourself forward in First Frequency. Additionally, you can enroll for free in our 6-day video e-course at shockmetaphysics.com and hang out with some of the greatest minds of our time. And again, if you could, I would really appreciate if you would take a listen to Nothing is Wrong with Black People, Something Happened to Black People, and stream that on one of whatever your device or platform of choice is, because I wanted to be able to give people something they could do in their car or while they're washing dishes or doing laundry. So because everybody can't watch a YouTube video or a PowerPoint. So you can also enroll in our free Affinity e-course at firstfrequency.com. and become a part of our community and practice what we call first frequency specificity daily. And that is invoking the cosmic law of 7. So repeat 7 times a day, 7 days a week. I am one with first frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people. I am one with the only one. Ashe, and so it is. Thank you, community, for allowing me to present. Thank you, Dr. Tata, for allowing me to present Uncle Job Seneb, and so it is.
Thank you very much, Rev. Thank you for the beautiful information. Yeah. And I want to thank, I mean, this team here, this family here is a true family. Yeah. I mean, if you definitely will go through some of the chat, and you would see even some other opinions, like from our brother David. David Wine has been asking if you could distinguish between the physical and the metaphysical. And he also talked about the issue of the 7 laws of Mahad. If you could relate to that. And I think I was just saying that maybe the 7 laws of Mahad is something that we need to take another session to go through that, right? So it is not about, I'm talking to David, brother, it is not about disagreeing. No, that's the reason why we are different. Yeah. And that's what makes us really unique. Of course, bring other points and from other concepts. We are here to learn, and we're so open. We're different from the second or the first frequencies. We're the second frequencies. We're the first frequencies. It means we are open to learning. And it's not everything. Nobody, like Professor Pielo Lumumba said, nobody has the monopoly over knowledge. Like no one can claim or write everything that I'm saying is just correct. So, brother, we appreciate your feedback. And it's not about what do I want to say? Something personal, but it's exactly the way we think and feel in a family. So diverse are we, so also are our opinions. So we appreciate that. And exactly like what you said, Rev, most of us, because of this lizard brain, right? We would not be. I see this brain now, a fresh brain, to challenge this, not just the concept, or to say I see it differently. It comes from a point of view. That is exactly the healthy brain that you're talking about. Yes. But on the contrary, our damaged lizard brains are that one that, particularly if we relate to Africa, the leadership and everything. So, you know, we just consume and pretend it is okay. Even we are not even in that state where we can challenge or we can bring in a controversial or a different perspective. And so I'm loving it. This is exactly the spirit. We have to question, we have to challenge, we have to bring other opinions or contrary perspective to what we know. It's all in the essence of all learning. So Rev, you have been and you are always going to be one of our favorite teachers here, as we're saying, and we welcome you every time. And I know you said it, when Africa knocks, I open, and I'm always ready. Yes,
100%.
Yeah, you took a lot to be here. We only had some difficulties. All the videos that you actually played, there was no sound, and I tried to reach you.
Oh no! Oh, I didn't know that. Oh my goodness. Oh well.
Yeah, so
I don't know how to fix that one. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, I see somebody say, I love you too. I see some people say I love you too. Thank you so much, family. Y'all are so sweet.
Yes.
Y'all make me feel good when I come to Africa. When I come to Africa, y'all love me up, boy. I tell you what. Well, same in the UK too. I can't say nothing bad about it, but y'all Africa, boy, y'all don't play. Dr. Tata's platform, they love me. They love some Rev Shock up in here. I love y'all back.
Of course, we love you. You're one of us. You're the ones taking out of the frozen brains and trying to tell us where we're stopped and taking us back. It's been very positive, and the energy, I could really feel it. The people on the chat or the family here is actually saying yes. And you see the ones that you got. You got the ones, and there were some one.
I so love it and appreciate it. You know, part of this, Dr. Tata, is, you know, Baba Kaba has instilled in me and taught in me that I have to being a minister means to administer. And so I have to administer to the community. I have to be a philosopher. I have to do deep research and homework as to what has happened to us, how it happened to us, so that we can reverse engineer it and get our rightful minds back. See, what makes me sleep very well at night is knowing that the situation we're in is not as bad as we think it is, meaning that we don't have to learn anything new. We just have to remove the lie of the Amu, and automatically it will reveal our first frequency. So it's like the code is already on the hard drive, which is our bodies, our brains, our mind. It's already in there. We don't have to go somewhere else to look for what it is that we need to do. It's already inside of us, but we have to exercise and excavate the trauma out of us and the lie out of us to restore back to our natural state of mind.
Absolutely. So we just from getting the theory, which is the education, we all feel it. I think the next step, like we're saying, is to get into practice. Like, just detox. If I was full of and I call that really self-hate, the idea of thinking that you're doing it for somebody, but you just do it to yourself. That's so insane. I've never ever thought that. The fact of just being jealous of a brother, or criticize. Yes, we can say we share opinion, but of wishing him failure, of rejoicing in the pain, and you're just doing it to yourself. And it's really, really appalling how damaged our brains are until we celebrate the failures of others. And we do these mistakes all the time, even when, no matter how bad a president or a leader, nobody will want to, in a normal psychological state, wish him dead, because automatically he would die in any case. And so this kind of, I don't know, the kind of trauma that you're talking about, wishing some other people, or not supporting, or not engaging, or being toxic to ourselves. As a matter of fact, you're thinking that you're doing it to somebody, but that's actually self-hate. You're just doing it to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. See, so the reason why I do the show that I do, the work that I do, the reason that I rock and work with you, Dr. Tata, is to show the community, here's what happens when you have control of your lizard brain. Here's what happens when you have control of your rightful mind. You are able to work with your own people. You are able to see your own people. You are able to love and support your own people and wish for nothing in return. And so that is the epitome of self-love. It is the opposite of self-hate. And it is who we are. It's the nature of who we are. It's the core of our fabric of our being. It is Ma'at. And so this is why it's important for us to have a continuing dialogue, conversation, fellowship, virtual fellowship, if you will. I really would love to be able to virtually build this ministry and take this message throughout Africa and help particularly the children before they become conditioned, before their brains become hijacked, but to be able to teach them the truth of who they are. Can you imagine what we could have done if we had have had this information when you and I were children? Can you imagine who we would be right now? So it's imperative that once we know what has happened to us and we have the science of that, we now have to get it to the children wherever they may be, however and whatever it takes to do that, so that they can get that message. Because guess what? Sometimes the parents might be hijacked. They might be so successfully colonized that their VMPFC can't think logically, and now they're even hurting their own children. And so we have seen that happen. So it is our job where if you know somebody who has a cell phone or a device, send them this. Send them this. You don't have to do any preaching or teaching. Just send them Dr. Tata's show. Send them this episode, this particular episode, and let them watch it. You will see yourself in the data. You cannot not see yourself in the data. When I break this down, it makes perfect sense because it's African sacred science. It's tepaseb, accurate reckoning by using the correct method. So this is why what you're doing, Dr. Tata, is so radically important. I don't know how you do it every day. You are true goddess to me. I literally worship you because worship the ground you walk on, because I'm like, she does this every single day. I don't have any hair to pull out, so I don't know what I would do if I had to do it every day. I'd probably have to, but I mean, that's only a goddess could do this. So you are a true goddess, and what you're giving to the community on a daily basis is that bombardment, repetition, and saturation. That's what it is. So the more you watch Dr. Tata's platform and shows, the more you watch mine, but mine are sporadic, but the more you watched daily, you begin to retrain your brain and retrain your mind, and all of a sudden you're going to wake up and there's going to be a sense of possibility in you. There's going to be a sense that, well, I think I can try something different today. I think I can make it. I think I can do it. This is why what you're doing is so impactful and so important.
Thank you very much, Rev. Thank you so very much. Yes. Like you said, and I want to thank all of those that are supporting. I see our sister from Bentley. I mean, it's been a long while. Munich just donated, and all of you that have supported also with your donations in kind and cash. We do appreciate you. And Rev, hey, your time and what we do. Anyway, really, these days, because of the challenges of technique and whatever, and YouTube and social media platforms trying to silence them out, I'm really not daily on the show anymore. So we come up when the possibilities give. Yeah, but tomorrow up to Saturday we're on, and our usual program is Tuesday to Saturday, and then we have 2 days off. So, but in the past times, also with break-ins that are coming, sometimes we have to catch up to, we're just a small team of 4 plus our whole community. So, yes, it is a pleasure. We give back and you get it back. I love doing it, right? I mean, I don't know any other job that I just say now I work for my people and my continent.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy. I'm so fulfilled. There's no other job that I can do anymore again. I don't work for any other body. I work for our race. Yes. So thank you. So when are you coming up again? Let's just scroll down the calendar so that the community gets it fixed.
You're so greedy. You're so greedy, Dr. Tata.
That's what
let the boy rest. No, I'm just messing with you. Let Rev rest. You just want him back tomorrow. No, I can't. Well, no, I will be back next month with you. And I'll be taking a deeper dive into all of this work, and we'll probably now that you have a good foundation of how your brain works and what have you, we're going to apply what we learn to creating disruptive economics and moving ourselves economically forward. So I think that's where I want to focus my next few lectures for the upcoming months is on disruptive economics, self-economics, and what it will take, and what I believe most everyone who has some type of internet-connected device can use to learn how to begin moving themselves forward financially, now that they have an understanding of how their brain works, how it was captured and hijacked and compromised. Now it's time to make the money, because now we're in our rightful state of mind. And so we won't use that wealth to destroy us or to inoculate ourselves from the pain. We will use that wealth to project our first frequency and radiate our true God and goddess levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely correct. I'm with you. I think it's also a good thing to say, if we had to get that wealth with this kind of mindset that we had, we'll just be destroying ourselves, thinking that we're doing
Absolutely.
something.
Well, we've seen it happen.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it corrupts us because again, if I hate myself, money and wealth only makes you more of what you already are. It just polarizes you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hate yourself and hate your people, you're going to use your money to harm yourself and harm your people. And it might be completely unconscious. Sometimes it's deliberate, but most times it's completely unconscious. You don't think about it because you don't even know that you don't like yourself. That's why you buy up so much stuff to make yourself feel good about yourself. Because you feel like there's something missing. Right?
Absolutely.
100%.
Anyway, it takes the first frequency spirit and the mind and soul to get to that dimension, to see things that way, and to know that as African people, you watching from the continent and the diaspora, you're the richest on earth. It is for no coincidence that your continent is being referred to as the richest continent. So God would not, creator, like you said, will not give you a rich continent and make you poor. It's just because somehow you're trading on the diamonds and gold, but somebody keeps telling you that you are poor. Somebody keeps reminding you that you are not worthy. You are not just who you are. So what we are doing is just gaining that and saying, I could not be given a continent that is flowing with milk and I'm poor. What makes you think that way? That is what we want to change. And I want to thank all of you for being my guest. And exactly, that is very informational, educational, creative, sensitization, and awareness about who we are and where we're going to. So I wish you all a blessed evening, and we're going to see ourselves here tomorrow. Watch out, because I was looking for the minister of the SIT region. Actually, I spoke with him, and he promised to confirm if he will be on the show. If not, then we're going to get some other guests. But watch out, we'll be live tomorrow. So I want to wish all of you and your families a blessed day, and we see ourselves tomorrow. Good night. Good night to you, Reverend. One last word for the community.
The Creator takes you up.
Hotep, Ashe. Good.
Ashe.
Yeah. Tukukomaja to all of you out there, and we see ourselves tomorrow. Kofi, thank you for joining. It's so very late. You're going to explain to us why you were here, and I salute all of you. Bye-bye. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home.